Hello everyone, it's so nice to see you. We're streaming from a new office, so as you can see there's a little mess in the background. We're finally sitting next to each other.
Finally.
So I can wave from two different cameras. You can expect a lot of technical issues because this is the first time we're streaming in this setup. But it can only get better, right? As with Against the Storm, we will keep iterating, we will keep changing and making everything better for you. So, that being said, we are here today to talk about guidance and lore update. The first part, because we decided to divide it into two parts. Tomorrow we are releasing the first part. We're very happy that you joined us here. So hello everyone. Hi Ron. Hi FBA ZZ. Oh, I'm not gonna try to say the full name. Bob Green, Telhurin. Yeah, we're late as usual. Jump Tony. Thank you everyone for following us. It helps us a lot. We really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's jump into the game.
Yeah, let's go. So, as Luke said, it's going to be the first part of the update for guidance and lore. What does that mean? So, it's one of the things we teased in the roadmap. It's a system that is designed to guidance, and give lore, to mostly new players. It's we're slowly nearing the end of early access or the 1.0 release. So now is the time to add some more features that will streamline the experience for newer players. Because there is also a point in the game's development, in the game's like life cycle, where we want to give it more breathing room. You guys have played the game a lot. There's a lot of balance feedback, a lot of UX feedback, but we don't really want to right now shake up the foundations of the game anymore. We want to add stuff to make it a bit more accessible and to give it a bit more depth in some areas that were lacking before. And in this case, it's guidance and lore. So what does that mean? We wanted to create a system where, for example, when you start the game, you get some more contextual tips, you get some more lore, you get some sense of direction when playing. Because right now, when you finish the tutorial, when you start the game, you feel a bit lost. This first part is a bit still lacking because we still need more content for that one feature, but it's a step in the right direction. So as you can see, there's a new building in the Citadel, and it's your home. You are the viceroy, one of the viceroys in the Citadel, and you have your own home. To unlock this, you will just have to finish one very simple new deed. In this case, it's unlocked because it's debug mode, and you can click it. You can go through this button, and you will go into the viceroy's quarters, so to speak. There, someone very special will wait for you, who will help you in your travels in your game, basically. As you can see, we have to choose a relation to Aunt Lori. Who Aunt Lori is, we're gonna know in a second. Let's gonna choose this, and here we are. We are in the viceroy's home, and there is Aunt Lori. This beginning section is a bit. This beginning section, I just read the comment. This beginning section will differ for people based on when they enter in their meta progression their home for the first time. But here Aunt Lori speaks to us. We can talk to her. Not gonna go over. Oh my God! So Lori is going to talk about lore. No way. That's completely coincidental. So we're gonna speak to her. She's gonna introduce herself, and I'm not gonna read everything. You just have to, play it yourself and get to talk to her. But now we are on the main page of the interaction with Aunt Lori. Aunt Lori is a queen's hand, which is something something of a new title. I think we didn't really talk about it in the previously. Queen's Hands are the highest ranking members of the Viceroy Order, so they are the best of the best basically. And you can talk to Aunt Lori about what this means to be a Queen's Hand and so on. But as you can see right now, here she is. Here's your home, and there are some dialogue options you can have with her. These will change depending on your circumstances. Some of them will be always available, like can you give me some advice? No, that one. There's something I don't understand, and you can choose some topics you want to learn more about. So basically game mechanics. If you're a new player and you don't understand why your villagers keep starving, it's like an FAQ in the form of a immersive talking head. But also there is some contextual things like I'm struggling a bit. Can you help me with some advice? Can you give me some advice? So these are a bit more rare, but they're also contextual. So for example, if in the previous game, one of the examples is if you lost because of blight rot, Aunt Lori will give you, for example, advice based on how you did in the last game. So she might talk about how to avoid blight rot, or how to better manage your woodcutters when hostility was hard on you, and so on and so on. There aren't too many topics right now because it's the first iteration of the system. So in this iteration you will have some interaction with her. Sometimes it's just going to be one topic because you are at a certain point in the meta progression. But we will add more to it once we know it works. Once you give us your feedback about it, and we'll add new topics. We'll add new conversations, the new dialogue options, and at the end of the stream, I think we're going to hint at something that will happen with this room behind her. That's pretty interesting, I think. But yeah, so let's just look at one or two things here. For example, there's something I don't understand. And tell me more about hostility. And so now Aunt Lori goes into a bit more of details about hostility. It's not like in this very detailed way that you can find in the encyclopedia, but I think it's in a more understandable, clear way. So when someone explains something to you, it's a lot more understandable in those smaller chunks of information than in a big chunk of Wikipedia articles. So she explains how hostility works, every new person in your settlement, every discovered glade, and so on, and that's it basically. You can also ask her for advice. She will then so she watched us during our last expedition, noticed that we didn't move our camps, which is true. I played a game before the stream and I didn't move any camps. And why is that? You can then tell her, I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't need to. Let's say I didn't know. So she will then, they all have wheels, the camps. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And then she'll explain, for example, why that's useful, and you should do that, and so on. And you can. I have to go, and you can go. Here's your new home in the Citadel.
So maybe let's answer some questions that popped up. So the first one, is this going to be a sort of first step to a lore meta campaign? And I think the answer is not. It's not going to grow into some kind of large meta campaign. We like to think of reforging the ancient seals as some sort of mini campaign that happens on the world map during the cycle. The Aunt Lori will be there for you during the entire meta campaign, the reforging the seal campaign, and she will give you some clues. But there's not going to be like an overarching story. This is not what we aim for with this update. It's mostly aimed at new players. And to answer another question that also popped up, is this going to be a part of tutorial? Yes, we'd like it to be the next step of the tutorial. So once you finish those two tutorial maps, go through world map tutorial, the next thing that the game you will get to finish this first deed, and then you will meet Aunt Lori, who will from now on give some clues, interact to your actions that happened in previous settlements. So this will be like the we sort of natural transition from the tutorial stage to the normal game stage.
It's going back to the point about it being like a campaign or a story mode. We want to give you stories inside of it. We're gonna give you lore, and you can ask, for example, Aunt Lori at some certain points during your gameplay, tell me a story, tell me something about the world, and she will like give you more lore. That's one of her like main roles here. But also we want to in the future give some more structure after the tutorial. So it's not gonna be like a story-driven game at any point, but it's going to be like you finish the tutorial, you play your first game, you come back to Aunt Lori, and she'll tell you about what your next objectives should be, for example, or what you can think of as a new player, where you can go, what you can try. And then after you do some things she tells you to, then you can get new advice, new like hints about where you should progress. As Luke said, it's more aimed at newer players who feel a bit lost in the beginning of the game, because we don't really have a campaign, so there is no point where you just go from one point to the other. But having an interactive NPC who will tell you that, listen, you should look into buying some more upgrades and trying to reforge a seal, it's going to be something that will give you some more connection to the world, basically. There were some other questions about...
a couple, like why does she have no eye? Where's her other hand? Let me just tell you, it's not a coincidence, but you will have to find out on your own.
Yeah, at some point we will tell you, but not now. Not in this update. You can dig through the files of the game after this update, but it's still not there. It's gonna be there at some point. Somebody asked about the decor in the house, and let's just keep that for later on, okay? So at the end of the stream. Other than that, because that's the biggest thing of this update. That's going to be like this stepping stone for future improvements of tutorialization of the game and so on. We also have some stuff in the pipeline, additional tutorial missions, so you can learn about some other things that will come in the future. But we also have some smaller changes for those of you who are less interested in lore and less interested in new player stuff. We are more interested in, for example, UI changes and balance. So first off, let's gonna just start a game somewhere, whatever, just in the Royal Woodlands. Let's do Prestige 20, why not? We're not even gonna really play the game, but just let's embark here. And first things first, UI. So some of you, especially Ron, will be happy to hear that we added the grid view back to the warehouse. So last update we changed this to a list to make it easier to adjust the values here, but at the same time we lost some of the usability of the list of the grid. Now it's back, and you can track your goods and set limits in two ways. You can do it in the list, which is like now, and you can also click something here. Right now there is one thing missing in this build here, is that you will be able to click a resource here and get a special tooltip where you can also set the limit of our resource. Right now it's the old way around, and just click and track, but it will change for tomorrow's update. Also other things, let me just look at my list. One thing that also a lot of players wanted to see is let's build a small warehouse here. And you can see here you have the move button. The warehouse isn't normally movable, but we changed it so that every building that is constructed that is not built to 100% can be moved freely. So it's a bit more usability, because sometimes you just plug down a building, it's not being built, or it's being built but you want to change the location. So instead of just demolishing it and building it up from scratch, you can just move the building site.
But that's not the only new thing related to buttons.
There's also a new button here, as you can see, which is deactivate and activate. So if you deactivate a building, you'll see a Z icon here above it, a gray one. And that means that this building is basically sleeping. Why are they going there? Oh, they just want to go and check because the order to get resources was sent before we clicked activate, deactivate. So now, if you deactivate the building, when it's a construction site, it will just be ignored by everyone. You activate it again, they'll start building it. Also, with production buildings, it's not only for construction sites. Okay, let's remove that and just go to the construction site. To the CRUD workstation. So now you can, for example, have this CRUD workstation where you have 2 workers, you have some recipes here selected, but you want to stop production for whatever reason, but keep your options here. You just deactivate it. All your workers will be unassigned, and haulers, that's the most important change, will ignore this building until you activate it again, basically. There's also a shortcut for that, so you can activate, deactivate using the point or the dot key on your keyboard. So that can be pretty helpful if you're optimizing your settlement. That's one of the biggest changes. Also, I'm just reading it right now on here. Some smaller changes you were asking for is, for example, notification when a forest mystery or a plague in the sealed forest removes your nodes. It will now appear here on the left and tell you which node was destroyed, so we always know about that. Also, balance-wise, there was some talk about the last update about the new forest mysteries. And I agree, and we agree basically, that some of them were not really tuned to the reasonable amounts of hostility and so on. One of them in particular, the one with shifting paths, basically, which slowed down your newcomers when you didn't pay a certain amount of goods, was a bit too harsh and too finicky. So we deleted it basically from the game. We tried to nerf it. We tried to change the how it works, but in the end, it's not really a very compelling gameplay proposition. And at the same time, the penalty is basically slowing your settlement down, which doesn't feel good at any rate. There's nothing you can adapt to, so that's going away. The forest mystery, which removes your nodes when you don't pay, is just bumped up higher into hostility 4, I think, right now, because it's a more interesting forest mystery, but it was just too harsh on the level it was. We also changed the generation there, so you might not know that, and that's very technical knowledge about the game, but forest mysteries are generated not only we don't draw them like a deck of cards, we also look at other forest mysteries that appear at the same time. So for example, if you get a very, very hard one, which is very hard to avoid or very punishing, then the generation algorithm will give you a few more positive ones. I mean, the more helpful positive ones than the less helpful positive ones, and some negative ones will be a bit weaker than they could be, basically. That's just to give you some more context to that. So that we changed that also. There are some questions, I think. Yeah,
what about priority delivery, like forced delivery event reward? So we were experimenting with it lately, but the UX of this feature is,
it's terrible.
It's terrible. That's the word I was looking for. And for now, we decided not to pursue this feature. I mean, we still know it is a requested feature, but we tested it. We tried different approaches, and it's a terrible UX.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's basically the idea of when you finish a a Glade event, and you really need those tablets, or you really need some item for your timed order or whatever, or food because people are starving. The idea is to prioritize those types of things your scouts bring back. And we experimented with some solutions to that. We added some UI there. We just added like a click to prioritize. But in the end, it's all a bit undercooked. We still want to do this. We still think about it every day under the shower, in the shower. But it's still something that's in the backlog, and we need more time to really like get down the details of it, and think about all the consequences of different basically UIs we try or UX we try. But it's there. We know about it. We think about it. Yeah.
The idea is good.
Yeah,
but
the
it's
idea is
hard to implement in an elegant way.
That's the case in a lot of the ideas we get, because we agree with most of them, but sometimes the execution is a bit more difficult than just doing something. So yeah.
Can we deactivate road building?
Good question. No. No.
You can't.
You can't. But if you one tip I can give you, if you for example struggle with road building, you want it to be the last thing to your people build, you have this priority here. When you hold shift while setting priority, it will set the same priority for all buildings of this type. So for example, if you build a farm and you really need that farm, you really want it right now, but you also set up like some roads here, and your builders are building those instead of the farm, you can just shift click -5, and they will, right now there's nothing else to build, so they'll build it first they can. But with that will probably help you with that. With stone roads, I think it's the same thing. You can't just pause it. One thing that is, I think, pretty interesting, and I'm looking at my list here. You can talk, Luke, so filler episode.
Sure. I'm also looking at the list.
Yeah, there's some stuff here also.
Yeah, we are, to be 100% honest with you, we are not as prepared as we usually are. We finished like putting all the sound panels here and
just
there,
on the floor,
just like on the last minute. We also wanted to put some how do you call it?
Curtains.
Curtains. We didn't have enough time.
We know about we are able to make games, but we are not the best at home renovation DIY stuff and so on. So it's gonna take a while. It's gonna be
an interior design.
One thing I remember what I want to talk about. You remember haulers, right? So there was some feedback about the priorities for haulers, how they like decide where to go, what to pick, and so on. So right now, because the main priority, the normal priority was that they would take the stuff to warehouses, to production buildings, and then take the stuff from production buildings into the storages. And they would take the buildings that are closest, basically. And some of you correctly noted that there are some situations where, for example, a building has a lot of, like the woodcutter's camp, a lot of wood, but like one insect from one tree, and people, or like here you have one resin. And the haulers would take the resin and ignore the wood, so that would like cause this to be ineffective, basically, or prioritize another building somewhere here that had like lower stacks of goods, basically. Now they will prioritize buildings that have higher stacks of goods. So for example, if a woodcutter's camp is full with things, they will go there first. Also the distance still has some, like, it's still taken into account, but it should be easier now, and it should like make your games a bit more predictable, basically, more effective also at some point.
Yeah. There's also one thing I wanted to mention. There are a lot of questions about, is there going to be this and this content added to the game in the next updates? It's important to note that we are heading towards the full release. It's scheduled for this year, so we have like 2 months and a half. This means there's going to be like 5 updates, 5 updates, something like that. So there are only 4 updates ahead. One of those is going to be the part 2 of Guidance and Lore, and it's going to be comparable in size to this one, I'd say. This leaves us with 3 updates. The final update will have a new feature. Will have a new thing that I think some of you might find interesting, but it's not going to be like super big feature that many other games have big content update on 1.0 release. This is not going to happen with Against the Storm, unfortunately, because of our bi-weekly update schedule. So we didn't really have time to create some super huge system in the background.
It's just not something we do. Most of the time we release updates bi-weekly. We get your feedback, we improve. Our philosophy is basically releasing smaller updates, getting feedback and iterating, and not really sitting behind closed doors and making some big feature for a half a year. So it's just how we operate, and that's not going to change for 1.0. But
so just a little warning that there's not going to be like a super huge content update for 1.0, and there's not really likely there's going to be more big updates. We prefer not to mess with balance, with systems too much before the the full 1.0 release.
We're not gonna mess with like the structure of the game. We're not gonna add like a big feature that's gonna change how we approach building in this game, for example. We're gonna improve the balance. We're gonna polish the UI at some places. We're still gonna take some feedback from like the upvote side and Discord, and improve UX here and there. That's all still gonna happen during those updates. Like every update before that is still gonna continue. But what Luke tries to say is that we won't really do another overhaul for example, like Blightrot. There won't be a full overhaul of another overhaul, because there was one already for Forest Mysteries right now. And no fishing. Yeah, that's not gonna happen before 1.0. We're a very small team. We have a very strict release schedule. We work in a very fast way. So the other bigger things, there's no space for them right now. And what's on the roadmap is basically what you can expect. There's, as Luke said, one thing planned for 1.0, which is sort of a bigger feature, but it's not like enormous, which is not on the roadmap right now. It will be added there at some point, and we will tease that. But no fishing, no new species before 1.0.
The office is literally falling apart here.
Oh,
the sun panels are falling off the walls.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before let's move on to some other balance changes, and you can look at some questions in the meantime. But in terms of balance, there are some smaller changes also. Besides the Forest Mysteries, some of you correctly pointed out that, for example, porridge is missing from trade routes, so no town was willing to buy them. And there's also porridge was missing from, I think, training expeditions, so we added that. Some of you correctly pointed out that the smithy and the, I think, tinkerer had very similar recipes. So we changed some recipes in the smithy and in the smelter to make it a bit different. So the buildings don't really there's no choice when two buildings are too similar to each other. So we wanted to avoid that. So we mixed up a few recipes there. I told you about the missing, the removed Forest
shifting
Mysteries.
paths, Forest Mystery.
About the hauler UI change. There's also some bug fixes as always. For example, the ones with haulers, there's one bigger bug fix where there was one bigger bug when you removed a small storage while it had hauling carts in it. It would break the game basically. So we fixed that. We fixed a lot of other things. We also improved save stability on certain configurations because there was some loading issues on different weird configurations of hardware. So that should be fixed now. Yeah, and from all the other things, I think that's most of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of text added to the game, a lot of lore added in this world, in the meta layer, where you get to speak with your aunt Lori. So this is where the most of the development time went into world building, compelling dialogues. Hopefully they are
tips and so on. Yeah, that's and
we hope you'll have fun reading a little more about the game, about the world of Against the Storm. We hope you like Aunt Lori. She's very kind, but she also has a temper.
Yeah, I can say that.
She's very very experienced viceroy.
Yeah, the queen's.
It's good to have her on your side.
Yeah, and there are some questions I see here. One of them is, can you fix the tree selection tool? Do you mean the colors of the tree selection, like when they're highlighted? Because I know there's some issues with some biomes where it's not that visible. Or do you mean something else? And other questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we answered most of them already. I'm gonna just go through them once again, but I think it's
shit click. Sorry. Will we have to start a new profile? Now, no, not really. So there are different openings for Aunt Lori. So when you first unlock her, I mean your house and her in there, when you are very advanced in your profile, very high up with meta achievements and so on, then she will say something else when you first unlock your house. She will just say, why haven't we seen each other for so long? And you're gonna see what is basically dialogue there, because it's unlocked via a deed. So you just basically will get a new deed that, if you are an experienced player, that's just trivial for you. You have to just finish one game.
By the way, I think also the click to complete, or the visual style of the completed deed was also a bit tweaked, so it's
it's
more obvious that you need to click to
and collect your rewards. So even if you're an advanced player, you will get this. You will finish the deed, and you will get the home, and you will get her inside, and then you can talk to her. For a beginning player, there's going to be a different intro, basically introducing you to Aunt Lori. And as a beginning player, you will get some more dialogue, which you probably won't get as a advanced player, about like tips of certain things. So if you are a very new player, she will, for example, explain to you what hearths are, which for advanced players will not necessarily happen, because you all have played so much, you know what hearths are and how they work, for example. There's an additional question. I mean the expansion on the question about tree selection. The grid. There is one issue with the grid, that's trees are sometimes like too big or shifted in relation to the grid, and there's always a balance there, because we want the forest to look natural and to look organic, but at the same time I get that it's difficult to mark some trees. We will have to look at it and see if we can, for example, center some trees more like in the grid, inside the grid, so it's easier to select and easier to see. But there's also, as I said, there's this balance we have to take into consideration. At which point it's more usable but doesn't look as good. So if you want to look it less good and give it more usability, but we have that in mind together with the different colors of markings and so on. So we'll look at that. I promise you.
Are there going to be more prestige levels? There are no plans for that.
No plans for that right now. one thing that's gonna happen in the near future, in the next update probably, is new deeds. So if you, for example, there will be new deeds unlocking new, mostly cosmetic stuff. If you, for example, beat a higher prestige seal, for example, we're gonna see about the details here. I'm not really sure right now, but there are gonna be some new deeds to achieve in the game.
Are you going to get a new line in the upgrades tab for the new home?
No. The home is we thought about it, adding it to the upgrades here, but there are some design limitations, I think, with that. Some things that are not really fitting, because every line you see has like upgrades here. Every line has some passive bonus and an active bonus. So adding a completely new line would either be very short, just one diamond here and then probably nothing, or just a whole host of new upgrades which we don't really see the need for right now. So we decided to treat this as somewhat of a different building than other buildings here. One thing while we're talking about upgrades, and one thing that will probably happen before 1.0, is the reshuffling of some upgrades. We're still thinking about it. We're not sure if you want to reset your progress. I mean, not reset it like take everything away from you, but if there's going to be a patch where we just, take all the points you have here, give them back to you, and give you the option to buy them again, because we wanted to reshuffle some things around here, make some branches less stuffed, and for example expand the level cap a bit. But that's still something we talk about, and we need to decide first before we do anything with that. Yeah, is there any...
So you mentioned we're going to talk a little bit more about the home and its interior.
Yeah.
So the question was, are we going to be able to fill the room with some things, with some stuff?
Yeah, and before we move on to that, I see that there's some talk about the grid, toggable grid to help you with trees. That's a cool idea. I think we're gonna have to talk about this a bit more. I can't promise you anything on stream because Telhurin will kill me. So I'm just gonna say we're gonna talk about it, and that's a cool idea to keep the forest organic and make it more readable. Cool. But going back to the home, so it's empty basically. You can see that. One of the things that we'll add in the future update, in the next, or no, Telhurin is commenting, in the next update or in the next update, that depends, because maybe our streaming room will catch on fire and we're not gonna do an update. No, never mind. But we're gonna unlock new stuff for your home basically. So this is going to be another form of purely cosmetic progression, I think, where there are some, for example, deeds which are like unlock prestige 20, and you basically get like 50 XP for that, and that's not really a good reward, because by the time you are prestige 20, you have max level and you've beaten the game. So we're gonna add some new decoration stuff into deeds, so this room will change as you progress. So for example, you will get some new furniture here, you'll get some paintings, you will get some trophies, you will get like a very detailed, cool Viceroy outfit here and an animal inside, and so on and so on and so on. So it's gonna be a new way of visual progression, and something, for example, you can share around on the internet and talk about like, oh, my room is fully decorated because I'm such a good player, for example. And it's gonna be tied mostly to deeds. So some new deeds will appear in the Obsidian archives. You will, for example, finish a prestige seal, and you will get some special type of cosmetic reward for your home. Yeah, I think that's it about this additional system. There will be no gameplay advantage for gaining those cosmetic rewards, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think so. Also, there was one theory at the very beginning that Aunt Lori is from lore, but it's not. It's not. The name originates. The name has a different origin.
Yeah.
So our game designer, Natalia, her nickname is Lorianne, and I think it was like maybe we'll pay some homage or like a tribute to Natalia, and so the aunt is named after Natalia's nickname. So the full name is not Laureen, it's Lorianne.
Yeah, but lore and Lori also a cool coincidence.
And the funny thing, so just a few hours ago we were talking. I think you asked, "Oh, I just realized that Lori sounds like lore, and people are probably gonna think it's from lore." And Telhurin's like, "Nah, not gonna happen." And the first thing that happens on stream when the Aunt Lori's name comes up, it's like, oh, is it from lore?
Yeah, the first question. Yeah, exactly. But that's that's a funny coincidence. Are there any cool questions? Because that's mostly it for this update. I'm not sure if there's anything else worth talking about aside from like bugs and some typos we fixed, changed some. Of course, we also with every update we changed some wording around. So some of you reported that some glade events, some word events had like different wording than usually we use. So we just updated that. Some perks had some inconsistencies. So that's as with every update, it's fixed. It's improved. Yeah.
So is our house a human house or a beaver house? It's a human house.
It looks humanish.
I mean, I think when we discussed it, the player is a human.
The player can be. I mean, be whatever you want to be, but there is no canon. Decide for yourself.
True.
But
true
if your aunt is human, then you're probably human.
We talked about aunt. That aunt.
Yeah, your aunt is human, so you are
course.
human probably. But if you want to be a beaver in this world, feel free. We don't show you as the player anywhere. So, there was one question about plans for late game content. We are aware that there is players at the late game who play the game for a long time don't really have new challenges to beat. We are aware of that, but that's not something we're planning for 1.0. Maybe in the future we'll do something. We're still gonna experiment with the balance here and there before 1.0. We're still gonna polish the balance and try to make it basically more fun. Not really necessarily the most challenging, but just simply the most interesting and fun. But for now, we don't have plans to expand, like for example, the prestige roster or changing the prestige system into a more generative system or a more RNG heavy system. It's gonna stay for a while because we know where you're coming from, but we also think that over the early access period, we expanded the game's depth, and we think that there is some portion of the player base who were not really catered to as much as they could have been, and that's the new players, the ones who starting out. So once we have this problem fixed, that the players are feeling more confident playing the game more and having an easier stepping stone into the higher difficulties, then we can think about more difficult stuff in the future. But yeah.
Also, very cool question. Aren't you worried you're making the game too overwhelming for new players? This is a very good question, and I think we agree to some extent that the game can be very overwhelming for a new player, especially if you start with higher difficulties. But this is what this update is aimed at. One of the goals of this update is to provide guidance for players. So the game will react to your actions, as we shown in one of the examples. In one of the previous games, Aaron didn't move camps. So I don't think it's mentioned anywhere that in the game, in the tutorial or in wiki, that in encyclopedia, that you can move camps, specifically camps, freely, that you don't pay for it. So if you don't pay attention to the tooltip over the move button, you might not be aware that camps can be moved for free. So the next time you speak with Aunt Lori, she will suggest that perhaps you could move camps around because they have wheels, so they can be moved around freely. This can happen in very different scenarios. So if you don't, I think there was like, if you don't trade, she will ask why aren't you trading and stuff like that. So this is a new layer of the game that is not a, like, strictly speaking tutorial, but this is a very tutorialized content.
This is a good question because we are aware that we keep adding to the game every 2 weeks, and that's why we don't want to add any groundbreaking systems or shake things up before 1.0 or add new challenges before 1.0, because that's true. The new players feel a bit lost in the game. They hardly can win a game on the Viceroy difficulty or even the veteran difficulty, while top players can win in 4 years Prestige 20, and because of that we focused our attention on some meta systems. This system here is not really something that is a burden on like something you think of a lot during gameplay. It doesn't add any mental load to a player. It tries to alleviate at some point. We also, as I said before, try to we'll have some new tutorials in the future. We work on the UX. So we are aware that there might be overwhelming stuff in the game. That's why we stopped adding it, and that's why we want to expand this layer of advice, of guiding the player. Because with 1.0, let's be real, there's going to be a lot of new players. There's going to be a lot of new people who want to try out the game, who are drawn in by the people who play Prestige 20. They want to experience the game on that high level. But if we don't give them anything to try to make them better at the game, to make them understand the game, and not to leave the game too soon, then I think that's a worthy enterprise, basically.
Yeah, but there's still this 1.0 feature coming in the future, and I think some of you might like it. It might be interesting for you. So I'm trying not to make it sound like a super big thing, but there's one thing coming for 1.0.
One feature for 1.0, which we are not ready to talk about yet, but we're still talking about it, is that it's going to be something for the hardcore players there.
Yeah.
We want to focus on the beginning, on the tutorials, on the new players. And for 1.0, we're going to release a feature that's going to be, I think, exciting for the most hardcore players. And that should, maybe give both sides a bit more to do. But for now, as I said, we're mostly interested in helping those beginners to find fun in the game and to keep playing. And there was also one question about adding variety to Sealed Forest. This is also something we talked about, because the Sealed Forest, for example, has very similar, almost the same objectives on the seal for every game right now. And that's something we thought about, but it's a bit difficult to decide on right now. We wanted to add some new objectives a long time ago, but these objectives the static objectives have some sort of draw to them, I would say. Is that you always know what to expect. So this Sealed Forest game is a bit more of a different game than other games. So we always know that there is going to be probably the same objective, so we can prepare beforehand. So there is some additional skill, additional knowledge you need and you can use, and that makes the Sealed Forest a bit different. But at the same time, I get what you mean, because doing the same thing every time is against like the principle of the game. The game is about adapting and changing gameplay and RNG and so on. But there's an issue with that. If we create 3 or 4 variations for every objective, then some games might feel like, you play the game on Sealed Forest and you're like, oh, if I just got luckier, I would have gotten the better objective here and I would have won the seal, basically. So that might feel really bad. So for now, we're trying to focus, find a better balance there, maybe improve the balance of the existing objectives in the future. And we're still hesitant to add more objective variety there. Maybe this map should stay more static. Maybe that's one of the things that makes it more it's different, for example, to orders, because it's like a big task we have to do, and you can prepare for it. So it's I'm just spilling some insider thoughts here for you, so you can understand our perspective a bit better and why this is not something we're rushing to do for the game. But
we had multiple discussions about that.
Yeah, we'll see basically. Yeah.
Okay, so we are slowly going to finish this stream. It's been an hour almost. Yeah. That's very cool. I didn't expect to have such a long stream, given the circumstances. Yeah. But very cool. So thank you so much, Aaron. And just a reminder to everyone, the update is going live tomorrow between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. UTC, something like that. And so when you download the update, your current settlement will have to be first finished. So if you haven't completed the settlement, the game will have to close it. You will be rewarded with some Citadel resources in return. But if you are in the middle of doing a very important deed, we advise to finish it before the update goes live. All the changes, the full changelog will be included in the update notes as always tomorrow. And yeah, thanks, Ron. There's Hooded Horse sale happening at the moment, and you can get Against the Storm 35% off, if I remember correctly. But you can also get a lot of Hooded Horse games. I think all the Hooded Horse games that were released are on sale right now. So if you are strategy game fans, Hooded Horse has a big portfolio of games that we think you'd enjoy. There are also games to wishlist. So when we were at Gamescom with Hooded Horse, we got to play some of the games that are coming, and they are very, very exciting. There's Mars Tactics demo during Steam Next, so that's the other thing you should definitely try. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us talking. We very much appreciate that you follow the game, you're excited about it, that you share your feedback with us, bug reports. It means a lot, it helps us a lot, so we truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, and sorry about the setup. We still, here's a sound panel if you want to see one. We'll still broke something. Yeah. So we're still in the middle of, but the next stream is gonna be perfect. It's gonna be a nice looking room.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a fantastic evening and see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a cool feature here.